like the culmination of your efforts, the feeling is just so visceral, the sense of accomplishment, and like I can do anything if I've done this.
Emilie Cortes is an avid high-altitude and glacier mountaineer. Her previous climbs include Makalu, Mount McKinley, Mount Rainier, Kilimanjaro, and Mexico and Ecuador volcanoes, among many others. Emilie runs an all-women's adventure travel company called Call of the Wild Adventures. She recently left her 17-year finance career where she managed $7 billion in assets to align her passion and vocation, empowering women through positive experiences in the outdoors. Although her previous career was impressive, it is her life transition and current role of inspiring women through outdoor experiences that we are interested in discussing today. So Emilie, so excited to have you here today. Thank you for agreeing to talk with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and so we met while I was preparing this class, and that's one of the great perks of this class, is just meeting very interesting people like you. And I was so inspired by your story of this life transition that you made from a very lucrative corporate job into these outdoor adventures. And can you share your experience on how that transition took place?
Sure, and first I'm like flattered to have anybody call me interesting because I still think of myself as little old me, but that may be a theme throughout all of my story. So I basically went into finance because I didn't have a lot of family or a lot of support, and I was super driven and super focused and just wanted to do something that was lucrative in order to take care of myself. And I was pretty good at it, and I enjoyed my clients and my relationships, and I'm good at math, but in the end I just wasn't feeling super fulfilled, and there are a lot of demands and aspects of the corporate world that had become more and more unsavory to me as I got older. When I was about 30 or so, I just kind of fell into climbing, and I'd never really considered myself an athletic person before. I was always kind of the slowest one or the last one picked for dodgeball. Actually, I remember I would like try to hide and skip PE a lot. But I totally fell into climbing, and that's a whole nother story in and of itself. But I found that if I prepared, and I did a lot of the things that were really required, especially in high altitude, which is to go slow on purpose, to be body aware, to be disciplined, that I was actually pretty darn good at it. And it really kind of shocked me that I could be good at something that was so physically demanding. So along the way, I very slowly and methodically acquired skills. I really understood that there was danger in this activity, and I didn't want to get myself killed. So I also then began to lead trips, and that was a really big growth experience for me, to take the responsibility of others in the backcountry and actually believe that I had the ability to do that. But along the way with that, I would see with these co-ed groups that I would lead, the guys would kind of come in with a lot of confidence, and they would acquire the skills, and they would be appreciative, and they would leave with a lot of confidence. And, you know, making generalizations, of course, but the women would usually come in and have a lot less confidence, be worried, would they be able to hack the cold? Would they be a burden? Could they really do this? And then when they did, because they pretty much always would and were capable, especially with some coaching and guidance, they would just practically be transformed as people. And I've heard gals say things like, nothing in the office is going to seem hard now, because I did this thing. And that's the transformational aspect, where I feel like I'm having real impact on real people, and that's so much more meaningful for me. And I made the plunge to make that my full-time job.
Very daring. So when you take these women out, do they come back for more, or is it sort of one experience that they have and then they have this confidence and then that's over?
No, they usually keep coming back for more. I mean, it's almost an addicting thing. And whether, you know, a 5-mile hike is hard for you, or backpacking to the top of Mount Whitney is hard for you, but within your abilities, you go, wow, you know, I see the results of having worked hard, of having a goal. Like, I'm also way more motivated by, you know, climbing Denali than I am looking good in a bikini to actually be consistent with my own workouts and training. But there's just something different about when you get to the top of the mountain, and it's like the entire world expands before your feet, and all these hours and all of the prioritization and all the hard work, and even potentially, and I may be now, you know, not great marketing for my company, but there's sometimes a little suffering involved, right? You work through that, and then it's like the culmination of your efforts, the feeling is just so visceral, the sense of accomplishment, and like I can do anything if I've done this.
So you've been on both co-ed trips and maybe even led co-ed trips and then all women's trips. So how do they differ in their feeling between those two groups of people?
Yeah, they're quite different. Actually shockingly different. And in a few ways. One is like sometimes I feel like I have to be a little gentle with the male ego. So if a guy's trying to redirect something that I want to do, I have to really acknowledge them and make sure they don't feel threatened and then do what I'm going to do anyways. Some of that, just the gender dynamic is gone with an all-female group. But the thing that really struck me the most when I started leading all-female groups was that there were women in the leadership and there were no men around. And like my partner in Nepal says to me, he's like, what do you mean there are no men on your trips? What happens if something goes wrong? Yeah, and it's like, well, we figure it out. And I feel like it's this reflection of the corporate world as well. When you look around and it's mostly white male, it's starting to change, but most of my career it has been. There's something that becomes very deeply ingrained in you that that's how it should be. Those who are not like you should be in charge. And when it's people who are like you, it's other women or ideally women of color as well, and you're coming up behind them. You're going, of course I can do that, because I'm like them. So it's really a different feeling when you're in the backcountry. It's all women. You're making your own decisions. You're dealing with the situations that will inevitably arise. And you go, yeah, of course we can do this. Maybe we're even better.
Step up on that one, yeah. So did you consider yourself a leader before you started doing this?
Not at all. No, I even have a talk I call the leadership bone, about how I didn't have a leadership bone in my body, or so I believed. I was super shy when I was growing up, completely terrified of authority, and all I knew how to do is put my head down and study and get good grades. Climbing really was what changed me the most. So being out there and making decisions, and slowly and carefully, not biting off too much at first, not going on a double black diamond run on your first time skiing out, you know. I realized, like, I actually have a capacity for making good decisions, and people are resonating with me and they're listening, and in fact they may even be inspired by me because I've worked hard to prepare and I'm small and I don't have the build that one would expect a climber would have. And they go, wow, you know, maybe she really knows what she's talking about. There's something different about if it's a 6'5" guy who's really big and he's like, you can do it. You're like, I'm still not really sure if I can do it. But when I say it, they seem to believe it. And it took a while to get comfortable with that aspect of thinking about oneself with leadership capacity. And I also think that's something women may struggle with more than men. But eventually, the ability to impact others outweighed any doubt that I had in myself as a leader.
So what kind of training did you go through to get to that point, to be able to lead your own trips?
Oh, experience. Just lots of experience. I led a lot of trips. I led a lot of different group sizes, things where I'd done it before and I was just going back and leading something I was comfortable with. I've led a number of trips where I've never been before, so I'm figuring it out on the fly while giving other people confidence in my ability to make sure things don't go wrong. But yeah, it's really just getting out there and doing it. And yeah, there's leadership courses, and I read Outdoor Leadership by, I forget his name, Graham something. It's a Knowles handbook. And there's Sierra Club Leadership, and I did the Wilderness First Responder. That's a 10-day course that really prepares you for medical scenarios in the backcountry. And all of that helps, but I think it's like just getting out and doing it and being even open. I always solicit feedback on how I can be a better leader. Mm-hmm. People will say, like, you need to step it up and be a little more autocratic, or on this one, we all kind of know what we're doing. Consensus would be a little bit more appropriate. So I'm super open for that kind of feedback because I want people to feel comfortable. I want our objective to be met, and I want it to be done in a way that's safe and enjoyable.
And have you had your moments, I'm sure, where you've been there thinking, wow, am I really the right person for this? Or you're doubting your judgment on a certain situation?
Honestly, not really.
Oh, good. Good for you.
Well, I think it's also because I'm so deliberate about what I step up for, and I try not to go beyond my limits when I'm in a leadership capacity. I'm usually really trying to lead things that are below my limits. When I go and do things personally, I'm pushing the limits, and sometimes I'm going, thank goodness I'm not in charge of anybody else here because I can barely take care of myself. But that may be part of why I haven't put myself in a leadership situation where I really thought I couldn't handle it.
So speaking of those situations where you're pushing your own limits,
yes.
So first of all, what's the accomplishments you're most proud of in terms of climbing or being outside?
I would say a lot of stories revolve around my experience on Makalu, which is one of the 8,000 meter peaks. So there's 14 8,000 meter peaks in the world. That's around 26,000 feet. And it's a really small group of people that actually want to try and climb them, especially those that want to try and climb the 8,000 meter peaks that aren't Everest, because you get no glory for it. They're mostly much more difficult, even if they're just a little bit lower. So Makalu is the 5th highest mountain in the world. And I had kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to jump on an expedition in between 2 jobs. I had not trained at all. And normally I will train like 5 or 6 months like a maniac to do something even like McKinley or Denali, which is 20,320 feet high. But I basically went there with the goal of learning as much as I could and not getting myself killed. And I thought if I can summit, it'll be a huge coup. And just going there with such a small team, there were 4 of us total. Everyone else had climbed at least one other 8,000 meter peak, if not more. So I was kind of the newbie along for the ride and very conscious of my position there, trying not to be a burden or ask too many questions, and also be a contributor to the team, which was challenging in such an extreme environment. But I ended up making it up to Camp 2 and even slept at Camp 2, which, you know, is a big difference between just tagging a new altitude and sleeping there. And did fantastically well with the altitude, like floored myself with it. It still is like the hardest thing I've ever done. And walking across maybe half a football field of flat terrain to get to the camp took almost an hour. And that's just, it's really hard to describe how hard that is
amazing.
when you have to take a step and like take a few breaths just to take another flat step. But no AMS, and really thought like, oh my God, I might actually be able to do this thing. And then we got shut down by weather. And this is part of the 8,000 meter peak game. There's a lot of waiting. There's a lot of trying to find a weather window that will work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And we then ended up leaving without launching another summit bid. So it's kind of a bummer, but it is the experience of climbing a mountain like that.
So you say you do pretty well at altitude, right? And so you had no
Yeah.
AMS. How did you accomplish that? Did you have just a very slow ascent, or?
Well, I think there's a few aspects about dealing with altitude, or I like to say there are 4 things that determine how you're going to do at altitude. One's your genetics, so I clearly have pretty good genetics. One's your own personal fitness, so the more fit I am, the better I do, the less I'll struggle. And I wasn't super fit, but I was pretty decent. Another is your personal care, how much you're paying attention to your pace, you're hydrating, you're eating, you're not ascending too quickly, these things that are in your control. And then the 4th is randomness. So there are the most experienced climbers in the world that will come down with pulmonary edema, like after 17 years of guiding on Denali. So you just never know, and you have to be aware that that can happen and to listen to yourself. So I think in this case, it really was just the acclimatization program works. You climb high, you sleep low, you rest for 3 or 4 days, you wait for another window, you go up, you tag that previous camp, and you sleep high again, and you come all the way back down, and you recover yet again. And as you get higher and higher, you can start to feel how it really is impacting your body. And I'm just lucky that I don't suffer, that I don't get nausea, I don't throw up, I don't get the splitting headaches. But I do get super exerted, so everything just feels really hard. And like that, taking an hour to go half a football field, my partner was already at the tent, like basically watching me struggle across. But then he's got, nausea and a terrible headache, so then I, basically end up taking care of a lot of the people around me, even though I'm much slower than they are. So I think there may also be something to the fact that I have to go slow, and I worry more about the people that are triathletes and marathoners that come on my trips, because they don't respect altitude and they only have this one gear that's pushing really hard. And if you push really hard, you have to recover. And at altitude, your recovery is severely compromised, and the next day you have to get up and do the same thing and maybe go even higher. And I just seem to like, I can only operate in this one gear, and it's a pretty slow gear, and I can suck it up and get it done, and I just don't feel bad when I do it that way.
Yeah, and in fact, you brought a little device in here,
Yes.
an oxygen sat meter, which you use regularly. And
Yeah.
so probably, if you were to measure yourself when you were walking very slowly across that football field, you might have had higher sats than your partner who just scurried across and dropped it down. That may have given him the headache because the sats might have been lower at that point.
Yep.
So that slowing down is actually a good strategy, I think.
Yeah, and interestingly, I'm like one of the only people that carries this around, but I really want to know. It's a data point. I don't rely completely on it, but in the context of where we are, what the ascent profile has been, how I feel, I've actually experienced oxygen saturation of 69%, and I felt really bad. And just seeing that number, knowing that it wasn't like 83 and I feel really bad, but at 69, like I knew, okay, I have to take this seriously, I'm in trouble. Although I had to direct my own care, which is also kind of scary because you can go down pretty quickly when you're that low. So yeah, I feel like it's just such a lightweight. They're only like $30 or $40, like a great tool to have if you are in the altitude arena.
And do you like being alone in the mountains, or do you prefer to always have other people around? Like I've talked to some other women in particular that seem to like that sort of isolation and that solitude.
It depends. It sort of feels like graduating to be able to be comfortable or have the confidence that you can do it alone. So in the beginning, and this is part of why a lot of women come on my trips, they don't want to be alone. They're not sure. They want somebody else to help, hold their hand, answer their questions. And then you graduate to where, okay, you're leading other people, but you still have that camaraderie. And I even tell people, like, my issue is I'm a little hypoglycemic. If I ever start getting really cranky or I bonk, like, this is how you need to help me, your guide. And that's pretty much the only thing that will come up. Give me some food and I'll get a lot nicer. But going solo just takes it to a whole nother level where you're like, I feel like I can do this. It's still going to be scary. The hardest part's being alone with your own self-talk and not having anyone else to say, I'm worried about this. And they say, oh, don't worry, it'll be fine. We'll get there in time. No, you're just worried about it. And there's no way to resolve that on your own. The other thing that's really fulfilling about doing it alone is challenging people's perceptions. So when I've climbed Shasta alone, or when I did Mount Whitney backpack around the backside alone, the shock, the absolute shock and horror that a woman was traveling in the backcountry alone. And the guys traveling alone, they don't get that at all. So there's this interesting, like, constant reinforcement that you're not supposed to be doing this, or you should be scared by doing this. And it feels very empowering to directly challenge that societal norm that women should not be out alone doing things that are kind of scary.
So what advice would you give people, women in particular, who are considering doing something like this for the first time?
I'd say just go for it. We hold ourselves back a lot out of fear and think we can't do things and are afraid of even the potential of a little bit of suffering, like feeling out of breath, the uncomfortable situation of being the last one in the group. Like, we go, oh, I'm not even going to try. And there's the corollary that, like, bite off what you can chew. You know, if you've never been hiking before, go do some easy day hikes. Don't go to Makalu. But I'd say just try it. You know, sign up for a trip. Call somebody and say, this is what I can do. Is this appropriate for me? And if they think so, don't hold yourself back. Just go for it. I mean, I like to tell people that I tell my story about these crazy experiences in the mountains so that they can learn from it and they don't have to go as far as I did to get it through my own thick skull. But when I come back from these trips, my perspective is completely shifted, where I'm no longer afraid of managing $7 billion, which is a pretty intimidating thing to do. Some people are scared to death of doing presentations, and what's the worst thing that happens? You don't do so well, nobody remembers it in a year. So when my thinking is really shifted about, if I take this risk in the mountains, there could be loss of life or injury. And then I come back and I go, if I take this risk in this safe, civilized world that we have, maybe I can get that job. maybe I can get that date, like whatever it is. Like there's really only upside. So that's what I say. Just, be smart about it, but go for it.
Yeah, that's great advice. And any last words of wisdom on any topic that you'd like to share with our viewing audience?
I'd say just don't hold yourself back. I mean, you can't see how small I am, but I'm 5'1", and when you see me with these other people that are climbing, they can't believe I can do what I do, and I'm really not that fit. I work really hard. I try to be smarter. I have to make up for the fact that I don't have a lot of just natural athletic gifts, but I don't hold myself back. I still say, this is what I want, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. So that's one other of my things, like take the risk, be smart about it, but take the risk, and then just don't hold yourself back.
That's a great place to end. Thank you so much for your time, Emilie. It's great talking with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.